Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Head on over to cardkingdom.com to pre-order your Zendikar Rising cards today. Hey friends, the two new Commander pre-constructed decks, Land's Wrath and Sneak Attack, have just been revealed, so I'm here to give you the details and also my initial impressions on the new cards. These Precons are releasing together with the new set, Zendikar Rising, on September 25th. They are meant to be on-ramps to Commander, with 3 brand new cards per deck and the rest being reprints, so they're going to be a great entry point for new players to get into the format while still offering some goodies for veteran players. Now let's take a look at the Precons, starting with Land's Wrath. Land's Wrath is a Naya deck with 3 main themes that meld together seamlessly into a cohesive whole. The first theme is Landfall, putting lands into play to fuel powerful landfall triggers. We have a bunch of ways to put additional lands onto the battlefield, such as ramping you with Springbloom Druid, letting you play additional lands with Mina and Den Wildborn, or returning lands back to our hand to replay later with Living Twister. Then we have a bunch of cards that reward us for playing lands, exiling permanents with Admonition Angel, creating angry elementals with Omnath Locus of Rage, and getting permanents back from our graveyard with Emiria Shepherd. Then there's an Animate Land theme, animating lands you control into huge elemental beaters to smash your opponents with. Cards like Waker of the Wilds, Planar Outburst, and Embodiment of Insight animate our lands into huge beaters to start smashing face with. Finally, there's a +1/+1 counter theme, putting counters on your creatures and then rewarding you for having counters on your creatures. We had counters with cards like Together Forever, Retreat to Kazandu, and Elite Scaleguard, then get rewarded for doing so by drawing cards with Armorcraft Judge, protecting our creatures from removal and drawing even more cards with Inspiring Call, and giving our creatures flying with Abzan Falconer. Land's Wrath has its 3 main themes enhanced by its brand new commander, Abun Muldaya Ancestor. Abun's first ability animates a land you control at the beginning of combat until end of turn, with its power and toughness being equal to Abun's power. And its second ability lets you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. So we can clearly see the themes of land animation, landfall, and +1/+1 counters all working together on Abun. Abun fits perfectly with all the cards found in the Precon. The idea is to load up Abun with a bunch of +1/+1 counters by triggering its landfall ability as many times as possible, which in turn makes the land that Abun animates that much bigger, and then we smash in for huge damage. If you're looking for upgrades to make Abun even stronger, I suggest ways to generate additional combat steps like Waves of Aggression, which lets you animate an additional land with Abun and swing in for even more damage. Hardened Scales is a great way to bolster the +1/+1 counter theme, and ways to play lands from outside your hand like Rada, Heart of Keld can ensure even more landfall triggers. There are 2 other new cards coming with Land's Wrath, so let's go over them real quick. Trove Warden is an excellent new source of graveyard recursion and card advantage. It's similar to the Commander staple Sun Titan in that it puts permanents with a converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, but with big differences on how it does it. This ability is a landfall trigger, and you only get the cards once Trove Warden dies. So Warden is great in a landfall deck like this one, but easily fits into any white deck that runs a good amount of fetch lands, which the Warden synergizes particularly well with. Playing and cracking a Flooded Strand, for example, gives you 2 landfall triggers to exile 2 cards, and you can even exile the Flooded Strand itself, putting it back into play once the Warden dies, which is a sweet but convoluted way to ramp in white. The big downside to Trove Warden though is you only get the cards exiled by it once it dies, and the cards will be exiled forever if Warden leaves the battlefield other ways, like if it gets exiled or bounced to your hand. Having a way to consistently sacrifice the Warden is the key to making it amazing, so it will be strongest in decks with a heavy sacrifice theme like Aetherios, God of Passage, Carador, Ghost Chieftain, and Teza, Orzhov Scion. The other new card is Geode Rager. Geode Rager is a pretty small elemental for its big casting cost, but it comes with a subtle yet high-powered landfall trigger, goading each creature target player controls. This forces your opponents to attack with all the creatures and hit anyone else other than you, dishing out extra damage to your opponents, saving you from being attacked yourself, and removing would-be blockers so you can safely attack your opponents later. Despite how much I love the goad mechanic and think the Commander community underrates cards like these, I know most people are going to cut the Rager at the first opportunity. Still, I love this card and will happily run it in political decks like Marisi, Breaker of the Coil, Corona, False God, and Tarngarth, First Mate. Overall, Lands Wrath is a sweet Lands Matters deck that has a simple premise of ramping hard and smashing with huge elementals, but it has many overlapping synergies going on to keep it interesting. The second precon is called Sneak Attack. This Dimir precon is all about Rogue Tribal. This deck is all about sneaking behind enemy lines with your rogues and stealing your opponent's best stuff to use against them. Our sneaky rogues are tiny enough to sneak by unnoticed. Cards like Slitherblade, Trident, Shorestalker, and Invisible Stalker easily slip by any potential blockers to deal combat damage. That combat damage then triggers a bunch of powerful abilities, like making opponents discard cards with Una's Blackguard, creating clones with Stolen Identity, and even taking extra turns and making a bunch of tokens with Notorious Throng. Our rogues are expert thieves that can steal a whole bunch of different things, yoinking artifacts with Master Thief, the top of libraries with Gonti Lord of Luxury, and even stealing card draw with Notion Thief, but we specialize primarily in plundering our opponents' graveyards. First, we mill our opponents to make sure they have juicy things in their graveyards with cards like Soaring Thought Thief, Consuming Aberration, and Una, Queen of the Fae. Then we grab the best cards in their graveyards with Extract from Darkness, Rise from the Grave, and Fated Return. Leading our rogue squadron is the brand new commander, Anawan the Ruined Thief. Anawan enforces the primary strategy of our deck. We attack with rogues, mill opponents, and draw cards. In a typical 4-player free-for-all game, if we deal combat damage to our 3 opponents and they each mill a creature card, then we draw 3 cards, which is a pretty great rate. Milling creatures is even sweeter since we can later yoink them with our reanimation spells. Anawan is a pretty straightforward but effective rogue tribal leader. We attack, we mill to set up reanimation, and we draw cards. If you're looking to make Anawan even stronger through upgrades, I would suggest adding more powerful rogues like Thada Adel Acquisitor, more ways to generate value through combat like Knowledge Exploitation, and finally more ways to plunder our opponent's graveyards like Mnemonic Betrayal. The next new card is Enigma Thief. Enigma Sphinx has a powerful enter the battlefield trigger, bouncing 1 non-land permanent for each opponent. Paying 7 mana for this Sphinx Rogue is a terrible rate, but its prowl cost of just 4 mana is fantastic, making it an all-star in Rogue tribal decks, but less appealing anywhere else. Pretty straightforward card, powerful but narrow. Our next card is much more flexible though. Whispersteel Dagger is a fantastic graveyard theft card. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you can cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn. This is obviously a perfect fit in Rogue Tribal since the tribe is full of evasive creatures to consistently deal combat damage, and they have a mill theme going on to ensure opposing decks have graveyards stocked with juicy creatures to steal. But this dagger is useful in other decks as well, as long as you run evasive beaters and mill opponents a bit. I can see this dagger showing up in Sir Conrad the Grim or Nath of the Guilt Leaf, for example, and there's certainly other homes for it as well. So that's my quick rundown on the 2 new precons, the new cards, and thoughts about upgrading them. So what do you think about them? How will you upgrade them, and where will you be using the new cards? Let me know in the comment section below, and until next time, friends, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking the like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, make sure to click the subscribe button. And if you want to watch similar videos, click on the links appearing on screen right now.